Yeah, well, welcome everybody to the call. This is the most people we've had in the first 4 minutes, so that's cool. Yeah, I thought it'd be cool today to talk about how we all kind of approach prospecting in our business. And like when you're at a place in your business and like, "Hey, I really want to get more clients." I think a lot of people try to like shy away from prospecting, or they try to get around it, or they try to like give themselves some reason why, like, no, this other thing I'm doing is more important, because prospecting can be a grind, it can be uncomfortable. So I like hearing how different people approach it, because especially with like newer business owners, it's something that I found like I end up coaching people often on, because people just like really struggle with it. So I was thinking like of just kind of hearing your guys' perspectives on like how do you handle prospecting in your business? Like, is there a certain amount of conversations you aim to be having every week? How do you like to approach it? Maybe you want to start us off, Jer?
Yeah, sure. So what I've been doing, and for the record, I fucking hate prospecting. I don't think that anyone really likes it. But what I've been doing is I have this little clock. I'll set it for 99 minutes, and I'll literally just open up LinkedIn and like a spreadsheet and just go after certain titles. For me specifically, this week I was going after people that were active on LinkedIn with like over 1,000 followers. And there's actually something in LinkedIn where you could actually look at to see who else the creator's following. So I looked at founders that were creating Gary Vaynerchuk because I figured, like, hey, if they're a founder and they're following Gary, they're already kind of bought into some of these principles without me having to teach them certain things. And I ended up booking a meeting this week. I think it was from like last week's sales call, and it was like a $6,000 to $10,000 3 to 6 month deal. And the founder was an AI. He exited one company, and then he was raising money for a second company. And he's like, "Yeah, this is like not really a problem. If I get the funds, I'm down to do this." Da, 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 da. And that was like literally within like a week. Obviously, you can't really control like when they're raising their Series A, Series B, etc. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's like the fastest way. I think besides like ads, like we were kind of pre-call talking, and Mike will give you his perspective on ads if we go there. But like, I think that yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but I think that if you do like an hour a day, I feel like that's enough to like just really sustain to really build that pipeline out. Because at the end of the day, I also think that your content helps because these people are still going to go to Mike's profile, your profile. They're going to see that you have active followers, that people are like commenting on your stuff. So I think they're going to look at you anyways. So all that personal branding will only kind of tie into that. But it's more like for me, it's like more discipline than anything because it's just boring work. And I don't, there's the reward loop's a little off.
Yeah. So when I used to, when I was really doing DMs for a period of time there, I was trying to do, honestly, at one point, I was trying to do like 20 cold outbound messages per day, right? Which is actually a pretty solid amount. But I was like, okay, I gotta really give this a shot. And a lot of the time it end up being something smaller, right? Because it's like, it does take some time, right? Especially if you want to, if you're not just sending the same like copy paste message in this and you're actually doing like personalized outreach and stuff. And I was in a community at the time where the guy who was teaching that program really actually taught that like you want to personalize your message like to the point of mentioning, trying to find maybe some commonalities. You might like look at where they're based in the world. You might even reference that. So like that took some time, right? So I was spending like I know a lot of guys on LinkedIn, like DM coaches and stuff like this, they love to focus on like, and it only takes like 30 minutes a day and that kind of thing, where I really think that that's actually kind of unrealistic. I know they love to say that, but I don't think that I think if you only have 30 minutes for it per day, you're probably going to get out y- like 5 to 10 serious solid messages. So yeah, but I'd be trying to do like 20 cold outbound while also doing some follow up to previous messages that I had. And like that was kind of another bottleneck too, because like I had plenty of people that I've spoken to in the past, like so many. Because I also at one point had an appointment setter in my DM. So like really honestly, And at a certain point, I did change that 20 number because I was putting too many new people in the pipeline. And it's like, all right, man, you got this massive list of people that you've spoken to in the past. Honestly, just continue to follow up with them, right? So, but yeah, I think honestly, even 10 a day is like really solid. Um, but yeah, I'll let you guys carry on. I'll talk about like what I'm thinking about ads in a second, or I could just continue.
No, I mean ads are one way to do it for sure. So it'd be cool to come back around to that. Um, but yeah, prospecting is interesting because it sounds like the kind of stance that you're taking, Jer, is similar to how I've kind of come to see it over time. Because a lot of people will tell you that prospecting is a numbers game, and in some industries or with some services, I think it definitely is. But I think that with the kind of work that we do, where like we work very intensely with our clients, like we get to know their story on a really deep level. And it is, as we kind of talked about on last week's call, it is almost like a dance in a way. So you're trying to find clients that you want to dance with. Um, so I think you can definitely take the cast a wide net approach where you're like, I'm just going to hit my numbers every day. I'm going for 20 conversations every day, and approach it with more of that, like it's a numbers game mindset. And that does work. Like I know a guy who grew his marketing agency to over $50,000 a month by cold calling mortgage brokers every day. And he was doing like 200 calls a day. Guy was a machine. So that worked for him, and that can work. But I think for me personally, I feel I feel icky when I'm just like messaging so many people and I'm trying to get out a certain amount of conversations a day, and you're kind of taking that like spray and pray approach because
Yep.
you at least in my case, you end up making those messages very generic. People often pick up on that energy of like, "Oh, she's prospecting right now." Like this message says nothing to me personally. This is clearly something that she is saying to 20 other people today. I
True.
prefer to like the kind of stance that I'm taking with my interviews right now is like if I see somebody online who's doing something, they're building a business that I'm really interested in, or they've done something that I'm like, oh fuck, that's dope. And I genuinely want to get them on an interview because I think like, oh, I could ask this person really good questions. Um, then that like I'm gonna have fewer of those conversations a day, but I think the conversation goes farther. And, like, I've been testing it. Like, last week, I interviewed, Anna Kalin on Substack. I don't know if either of you guys follow her,
Oh, yeah,
but
she's dope.
she's got, like, 70,000 something subscribers, and she said on our call, she's like, "You know, I've had a bunch of people ask me to go on podcasts and stuff with them, and I always just say no." But she's like, "I just really liked what you said, and I liked what you're doing, and, like, there wasn't really a lot of back and forth between us." She just said yes right away. So I think being more intentional and more thoughtful when you're doing your prospecting can often lead to you having to do less prospecting.
Yeah. And I think it's also about systemizing. Like I created a Claude project and GPT because Claude kind of uses up too much of my credits sometimes. But I have it pretty much so I could screenshot the profile of the person I'm going after. And granted, they'll be like a C-suite person, a CEO, CISO, CTO, maybe a technical founder, something along those lines, over 1,000 followers, maybe some other followers that they're or people that they're following as well. And then from there, I try to personalize even like the video. If they already have content, but they don't have video, I might say, "Hey, I just noticed that you released this new product. Why don't we do a video on it?" So that way, it's even more personal to like the pitch that I'm saying. "Hey, why don't we do a free video, but specific to one of the posts that you already did?" But I'm definitely leveraging AI so that I don't have to read all that shit. I just kind of like go in. It does like 90% of the lift. I just go in with my extra quick little touches, make sure that it's personalized enough. Because I find that like when AI personalizes it, they just parrot shit back on the profile, and I'm like, internalize it. You sound like you're just like reading something back to me. It doesn't sound like you're actually interpreting shit. So like I have it like I rewrite it, and then from there, it only takes me about probably 3 minutes per thing at the end of the day because I'm pretty fast about just and I'm not spraying and praying. I'm actually going in there and personalizing it. And then I'm very specific about the people that I'm going after because I only want to go after people that believe in content already because I don't want to have to like show these people like, hey, like you should believe in content and then have to rewire their brain there to get on video. It doesn't, to me, I'd rather go to the people that already believe in it and then start there. So I think that it's also about like where they're at in their own journey and just making sure that like I'm like not wasting my time trying to get people to believe in something when there's already people that believe in it.
Yeah, if they don't see the value in it, it's gonna be harder for you to make them believe in the value and then also get them wanting to do the service.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious, Jer, because oh, sorry, it looked like you were drinking water there, Mike. I was gonna sneak in a question for Jeremy. Because I've heard people
Sure.
suggest before that for any type of like really creative client work, like copywriting, ghostwriting, heard a lot of people talk about how Claude is better than GPT. But then I've had people say like, oh no, if you're a ghostwriter, you should have both because GPT is better at research-based stuff and doing like you're able to get better kind of like SEO focused answers out of GPT, but Claude is the way better copywriter. What has been your experience?
Yeah, I think that Claude is much more thorough and it's much more dynamic. I feel like it's gives you a lot better answers. Like it's a lot more thorough with a lot of the answers that it gives you. I think GPT, I don't use it very often. The only reason I use GPT is when I'm not trying to use my Claude credits because I'm jacking up too much of my Claude credits when I'm prospecting. So, and then I think that also if you are prospecting and you set up these GPTs, it's actually it takes off a lot of the mental lift because then it's not like, oh, I hate doing this. Like you're kind of like, all right, I have a process. Like I'm just quickly finding these people and then just adding them to this queue. Sending, it's almost like content creation, but like more like one to one versus one to many. Like how could I like make this message pop to this one person and get them interested? And I don't think it's spray and pray at that point. I think it's more sophisticated. It's more like you're going after a very specific group of people, and then you're also very targeted and personalized with the way you're communicating your message.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, if we're comparing ChatGPT and Claude, I have both, and yeah, the reason I have both, there's like Jeremy mentioned, Claude obviously uses credits, right? So that's part of it. So and yeah, ChatGPT is like a research tool. Um, I've used it more as a research tool. That's probably partially because of the credits, but I do feel like ChatGPT maybe does do a better job of pulling that information. Um, I also feel like ChatGPT has a little bit more restraint. So if Claude is like the better, say that, yeah, Claude is the better writer, especially when it comes to more expansive stuff, more descriptive. It just has like more sauce, is what I would also say. Like it's got like better writing chops, you know? But then ChatGPT is better when you actually need stuff to be like tighter and more restrained. And then yeah, like as a research tool, especially if you're going to be going back and forth, and like you ask one question, you get an answer that then leads to another. Because now you're like, so I've been doing like research for even for my novel, right? And I've been researching like cartels and gangs and stuff like this, like Colombian cartels and gangs, and like just one question leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So I can't be doing that over on Claude, right? I just burn through credits, right? So that's why I have the two of them. Yeah.
That's good to know. I'm like I've my partner and I have been talking for probably like a week now of firing up Claude just because we're doing a lot of testing with like when I do an interview with somebody and we're cutting the clips from that interview, we're basically testing three different AI processes to help us kind of find the best clips sooner. And then you go in with a human touch and actually review them and make sure like, hey, is this a good clip? Does it tell a story? Is there a point kind of thing? Um, and we've had people mention a couple times like, "Oh, you should use Claude for that because it'll probably give you better like storytelling, writing ideas than GPT will." But so GPT, I think there's like certain tiers of the membership, so you pay like a monthly fee depending on what tier. So you're saying Claude is more of a like you load up credits kind of thing every month. Is that how that works?
I'm paying like I think 30 Canadian dollars or something like this. And I think I have like the pro version, right? There's another one that's like $100 a month, and that might even be in US dollars. I know that I know a HOD, for example, has that next level up, which is like I can't remember if it's called like the business plan or like the expert plan or whatever, but that one has like, a lot more credits anyway. I don't know how many, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. Based on your tier, you have a certain amount of credits. I have to be pretty I have to be pretty strategic in how I use Claude to not, yeah, come on, 40, uh, to not
Almost.
go over with Claude. But because now I've kind of just got it down to like, I've got my process now. I seem to use Claude in a way where I'm kind of not ever hitting that credit limit. I just have a feel for it now. Um, yeah,
I know what
yeah.
you mean. I had to stop using it for certain things. So I was burning too many credits and I was like, oh shit, I can't, I can't like, yeah, I got used to because I set up all these
And we get
projects.
to 50.
Do you guys set up projects? Because the projects help out a lot. I feel like I have projects for all sorts of things. A project might even be good for that thing that you're talking about for writing a prompt for like figuring out what the best part is of that. I'm not sure if that's what you guys are doing or if you're just using like Opus and a couple other things to do that. Is that what you guys are doing, Kelsey?
I have found that even in GPT, having a project for something is actually, to me, more helpful than doing like custom GPTs. For a couple of reasons, but like it makes sense to me to have like, if you have a bunch of ghostwriting clients, then you do all of that client work within that project because I think the way GPT works at least is like it can compile a lot more in a project, but if you're just doing a custom GPT, it's not quite as reliable for that. Um, but yeah, we've been playing around with using something like GPT to kind of help us identify certain moments of the interview, but then we also compare that with what Opus spits out as well as Riverside magic clips. Because Riverside has been really like advancing over the last 6 months in terms of its AI features. And some of them are pretty good. Like you can do magic clips, you can do it can put together like a trailer of the interview. You can do magic segments where it's like 3 to 4 minute clips, and it's continually getting better. But it's interesting to kind of compare like what an AI like ChatGPT says are like these are the moments you should focus on, and then compare that to what did Opus think were the moments worth focusing on, and then compare that to what did Riverside think. Um, and then to have a human go in and like review all that and be like, what actually is the best content here. And obviously that's a little bit subjective, but I think all of us could probably like watch 10 clips together right now and we would probably all generally agree on which clips we thought were better clips. So it's a lot of like testing different AIs and comparing and figuring out like, okay, when we get a 90-minute interview, what is the most time efficient way that we can get the best clips from it as possible? And I don't know if you guys follow Tom Bilyeu, but he had a pretty long post. I think he was with Cody Sanchez in it, and he talked about doing this. He's like, we used to, spend like 5 hours every week just having somebody like review footage and pull good clips, but now we've gotten so good at teaching AI how to do it that AI kind of shortcuts that part for us, and then we have our human team go in and like quality control and do the final finessing. So I think there's something to it.
Yeah. Mike, you'd mentioned ads at the beginning or before we got on the call. What were you thinking? Like you noticed something about LinkedIn and ads. What were you mentioning?
Yeah. So of course I could just continue with like LinkedIn prospecting, and I will also will just to kind of like bring it back a second. Like I agree with pretty much everything that has been said. Like Kelsey said the same thing too about like intentionality with it as well, because and it like it almost helps her. She was saying to kind of to go with a more almost like minimalist type approach of like I'm going to message one person today, maybe even or like one or two people today, but just make sure I absolutely just have like an amazing conversation with those people, which it's crazy because like that approach in comparison to somebody doing like 10 a day or 20 a day, both can work, right? Because one will probably be more spray and pray, even if the person does more of that like personalized approach where they're like looking for different things off the person's profile. It will still kind of come across as mass messaging versus when you just take that minimalist approach and it's like, it doesn't matter if I only message one person today. It's about like selecting one or two people today I really feel like I can help, who I really feel like I'd like to have a conversation with this person. And both approaches can work. Um, like even on the flip side, somebody doing like an insane amount of outreach where all they're doing is just a copy paste script saying, "Hey, I got an offer right now. We'll grow your following by 1,000 followers per month on LinkedIn. Uh, interested?" Even just that can also work, right? But I do agree with that intentionality. And something I will say about my approach when I was really doing it is I had automated connection requests going out. I was using a tool for that. And I feel like that as good as it was from like the time it saves you, because you're not like going through LinkedIn, checking comment sections, checking the timeline to find people, and just kind of having it happen more organically like that. With instead of that, it was all automated to like segmented groups of people, right? For example, founders in tech whose company is doing like like over or they have over 50 employees. They're based in the US, segmented, targeted groups, and I'd have connection requests going out to them. But a lot of the time I would find that like even though they kind of fit the criteria on paper, that they really weren't people that I truly wanted to work with. And then I think that was actually a really big problem because sometimes you can't put on paper the subtleties of what you're looking for in a client. And truly speaking, the people I've actually worked with have been more like coaches, consultants, and agency owners that just might have a very lean team, but like high profit. And sometimes those people are easier to find organically than through Sales Navigator, where it it seems to be better for finding more of those like corporate CEOs and founders, but not like there's no other way of putting this, like the really cool people who are more like independent entrepreneurs with high profit margins and lean teams, which are the ones I like the most because they tend to be like kind of the most like myself. So I actually vibe with them more, you know? Um, yeah. So there's been a lot of stuff that I've done wrong. Um, but that's classic is you have to make mistakes and you have to fail in order to actually succeed, right? So I've done a lot of stuff where, yeah, you try and automate something or you try and outsource something and it just doesn't like work as well as you'd like it to. Playing the volume game versus playing the intentionality game and playing that more organic game. And truly speaking, I think I like the more organic approach. But on the flip side of that, something I might try very soon is actually to run LinkedIn ads because my theory is that the biggest change in the LinkedIn algorithm was that once they introduced boosting for creators, well, how do you get creators to pay for boosting? Well, if organic content is performing amazingly, then why would people pay for boosting? Right. And then more specifically, not even just are people getting good organic reach, because you can still get amazing organic reach on LinkedIn. I know this because I still do get amazing organic reach on LinkedIn. Majority of my posts are hitting like 3,000, 4,000 impressions each. And that's like actually kind of pretty average for me. Like that's pretty consistent for me. And I'm doing that with just like text only posts, just with like a strong hook that has like a curiosity gap maybe a little bit of polarization sometimes, whatever. But so I still get amazing organic reach. The only problem is I can't put out business related content that still gets amazing reach. So I can't like put out an offer post and have it get amazing reach. Cause and this is how I know LinkedIn is like burying, like, and there's always that argument of like, oh, it's not the algorithm, your content sucks or something. I used to put up posts like that too, right? But in this case, it really is the algorithm. Cause like if you push down business related content that people would use to sell their offer, then where are they logically gonna go? If they're a serious business person and they've got a little bit of cash, they're probably then going to move to like boosting and ads. And if you want to sell boosting and ads, LinkedIn is playing that playbook perfectly. So instead of resisting that, my next logical thing that I want to try is running LinkedIn ads. Because my theory is if I take some of my best performing content that actually converted into clients and sales back in early 2025, before this, you know, brutal algorithm came into place, if I take some of those best performers and put ads behind them, I believe that they will have a similar effect, especially if I run them to people who are the type of people who signed with me back in early 2025 when I was killing it. So yeah, that's my next thing. Yeah.
You said, I was like writing things down as you were talking because there's like three things you said that I wanted to respond to. I think what you said about like, you know, again, going back to like quality versus quantity when it comes to prospecting, it kind of reminded me of like when I first started doing sales calls for this coaching program. I found that like they took a bit more of a like cast a wide net approach. Like they're like, oh, if we qualify people too much, we'll like greatly reduce the amount of people that, you know, we get on calls, and therefore we'll reduce the amount of people that come into the program. But you also find that like that then results in you spending a lot more time on calls with people who are not qualified, who are not good leads. And with something like a coaching program, it ultimately it doesn't really serve you to like if you take that stance of like I'm going to cast a wide net, I'm going to not really qualify these people, I'm just going to like open it up to as many people as possible, then you're going to have more calls, sure, but you're going to have a lower lead quality. You're going to spend more time on the phone with people who aren't going to buy because they don't actually fit the criteria of what you're looking for. And then if you keep doing that and you keep letting those people in, you're just going to end up working with more people who are bad fits, which in something like a coaching program often results in people like wanting refunds or the reputation of the program going down because now they don't have as many success stories because they're letting people into the program that probably should have never been in the program. So that's kind of what I learned after like doing so many reps of like prospecting and sales calls was like I would rather take a quality over quantity approach because I just get sick of giving my time to people that like should have been filtered out. And not that that's like anything negative against them. They just weren't a good fit for this offer. So I don't want to spend my time on calls all day with people that aren't a good fit. I'd rather give that time to people that honestly are a good fit, and I honestly believe that. Um, and to your point about like organic posts versus ads, I could totally see that like putting out any kind of like business or offer post, they definitely don't perform as well. I found with LinkedIn content, anytime I make posts where there's like dollar signs in the copy, or I'm talking about like sometimes even just like sales or marketing terms, I found that those posts generally kind of just bomb on LinkedIn. And I just assume LinkedIn is thinking like, oh, she's pitching. Nah. But I think it's a really smart move. And this is where it comes back to what you said, Jer, about like finding clients that actually see the value in content, because I was thinking about this week that it is really advantageous for people to do organic content and test what works, and then that can feed into your ads. Like if you do organic content and let's say you reach 3,000 people with a post, that's 3,000 people that you can now retarget in ads. So it
Mhm.
all kind of feeds into itself. And the people that I've seen get people good results with things like organic content are usually the people who have some kind of plan around that. Like, they're like, we're going to do a bunch of organic content, we're going to see what works, and then we're going to use that to make good ads for you guys. So I think both are really valuable.
Another thing to look at too is the people that have come to your profile, like in striking up conversations with them organically. I try not to pitch those people anymore. I just try to just have a casual conversation and just try to open up some sort of conversation. I've even had it where people have like, hey, I need some videos, like straight up. Like it reminds me of like a popcorn kernel. They're already like hot, and it's just like as soon as you talk to them, they just sort of pop, whatever. So I think that those ones are they're there for a reason, right? If they're coming to your profile and they're within your ICP and you know that you could work with them, why not have spend an hour a week talking to those people that are already going to your profile, right? I think that that's like low hanging fruit, especially because you'll know the ones that are like not going to be your clients right away. Like if they don't have a picture, for example, maybe it's a country that you might not serve. I don't know. I tend to work with people in the U.S., Canada, similar time zones, things like that, and also that I know that they have the purchasing power to be able to afford a high ticket service as well. Even like higher end areas like Manhattan Beach, Manhattan, New York, Austin, Texas. I mean, thinking about cities that actually have people that can afford high ticket services.
Yeah, we spoke about that one time. You were talking about how you were like messaging people from Manhattan Beach because you happen to know that it's like some high end, like ritzy part of town, right?
Yeah, it's
Uh,
beach community. Yeah.
but you work with Canadians, eh?
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
surprised to hear that. I'm kidding.
Hey,
I don't work with Canadians. They're too
no,
broke.
no Canadians. Have you guys
yeah.
tried running
Yeah.
ads? I've done Google ads in the past, and I know those could be pretty useful, but they're pretty expensive, and you have to get pretty tight about what ads you like are booking for, and like if you open up the net too wide, you'll end up paying a shitload of money for like ads that are like not targeted properly.
Yeah. Like I used to run ads for my restaurant clients back in the day. And honestly, when I was doing it, although I had learned some things about ads, I yeah, I had I no, I was gonna like downplay or say that I wasn't doing it right. But truly speaking, I did have some strategies that really did work. Some of them were like incentive offers where it's like claim this like almost like a coupon, right? That will send to you via email where it's like if you come in and you know, spend this much, you get this off, or if you come in and buy a meal, you get this free drink or this free dessert or something like that. Incentive offers like that. And that actually did work really well. I was about to downplay myself, but I took one restaurant from doing 33K revenue a month to actually like 90K revenue. So
Wow.
I really shouldn't downplay what I did. Um, but what the approach that I would take for LinkedIn ghostwriting would be driving traffic to a landing page, um, that just goes through everything. The results you've gotten for past clients, even talking about your own success. Like I have 22,000 followers on LinkedIn, that whole thing. I think that for where I'm at and what I can sort of reference as like social proof and results, I think this really could work. And then when I also have a bank or database of like content that has worked and has like actually converted clients, like my one, a post that did like 40 plus inbound leads. Imagine that with ads behind it. And this is why I think it's like less of a risk. I don't know if I really don't think that like the average person who just got on LinkedIn and wants to land clients should start running ads tomorrow,
Mhm.
because you have nothing to go on. You'll probably burn through cash.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
But
same thing because when my partner and I were kind of running more of like a marketing agency that focused on helping like local businesses, part of what we learned was like Google ads, Facebook ads, and you learn like the different types of Google ads because there's like pay per click ads, there's local service ads, there's different ways to do it. And I think one of the mistakes that I saw a lot of people make that I think is again just going back to like people try to do whatever they can to not prospect. So they're like, "Oh, I'll just run ads." But if you're brand new and you don't have any of your own like case studies of any kind to speak on, you're maybe still figuring out like what the value is you bring to the marketplace. I think doing ads is a great way to just watch your money light on fire. Because it's super easy to just spend money on ads if you don't know what you're doing. And a good way, like for something like what we do, like any kind of ghostwriting, I actually don't think Google would be the place to run those ads because like the kind of simple way I learned it is that there are services that are like need now, like tow trucks, plumbers, electricians, things that people, if they need it, they're going to Google to search for it. It's like search intent. And then there's services that are like need later or like nice to have. And that can be things like hair salons, chiropractors even, or even things like roofing companies where like people might know for a while that they kind of want that thing or they kind of need that service, but they don't act on it. And it might sometimes just take them seeing an ad or an offer pop up on Facebook for them to be like, oh shit, I've been thinking about that. So usually like those need later or nice to have services often get a better bang for their buck on Facebook. At least that was my experience. Um, so I don't think that if I was going to run ads for our business, I would do it on Google. I'd probably do it on somewhere like Facebook or LinkedIn. But I think getting a handle on like organic content that works and then retargeting those people in ads would be good. And then probably doing what you said, Mike, like running ads, sending people to a really concise landing page that goes over your offer. And that's kind of a delicate balance in itself, like what information to include on a landing page or a one pager. I've been playing with that recently. So I was like, oh, I kind of want to just like have a one pager that I can just send to people as an image. So I'm not even sending them to an external link. And it just was kind of an exercise for me of like, what information would I include on that one pager? Like what's actually the most important? So it'd be kind of similar for a landing page. Like what information do you include on that enough to get people intrigued, to get them a little bit more clear on what the offer is, but not getting so deep into the specifics that there's no need for them to book a call with you. That's a bit of a tangent anyway, but that's my experience.
Yeah. Oh, and something that you were mentioning earlier, like hopping on calls with unqualified people, and that kind of thing. Something that came to mind during that is that uh, sales, especially when you think of it from like the marketing and lead gen to the like time a prospect actually becomes like a client, it's kind of like math as well, eh? Like each step in the process, like should we be more should we disqualify more in this stage here so that we get more qualified people on, because time is money, and we don't want our salespeople just wasting time talking to people who are never going to buy, right? Every step of that process is so important. And especially I think with like agencies, coaching programs, when they're really killing it and doing well, then it really pays to go through and actually look at all the math uh of taking a customer from not even knowing you to actually buying your service.
Mhm.
Yeah, the acquisition costs, I guess they always ask that on Shark Tank. I don't know if you guys ever watch Shark Tank, but they're like, what is your customer acquisition cost? And some founders are like, I have no clue. And to be honest, like I don't really I'm not sure I could even calculate my customer acquisition cost at this moment, but it's a good idea to think about that. What you did too, Mike, was really good on like one of our past calls. You closed the guy, like he was like all like, hey, you were in the cafe for that 4K deal. And you were like, hey, like the guy was like, I need to think about this. And then you read him your post on the thing, and that kind of shortened that sales cycle there too. And I always try to do another thing I try to do is try to like book my call again with the person while I'm on the call so that it's
Mm.
not kept in this like crazy loop of like trying to get I'm like, let's just nail a time down right now on your calendar. Cause all those little things cut down probably the sales cycle a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. My last mentor, the guy who I've told you about, who is all about, helping you to increase the price of your services to charge more in this. He used to talk like, actually, he used to give me a hard time about it because I often would do a sales call with a person and not book that follow-up call on the call because I was just out of the habit of it, right?
Sure.
And sometimes it can feel like, but this is a limiting belief. it can feel a little bit like desperate or something that you're trying to set up another call. At least I was probably telling myself that, but obviously it's not. You're just doing business, right? But yeah, no, there's a lot to be said about that because yeah, people have people have their ways of weaseling out of of purchasing your services. So if you make it too easy for them to come up with some reason why they can't do another call, because like let's say you then follow up by email instead of having that call booked, it's yeah, everything can be a lot more loose and yeah, it's easier for them to get out of it, even if
I
they
think
would have been a good
there's
client.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there are some people who might do that and might end up being a good client. In my experience, and maybe I'm just looking at this as like through the lens of like I said, those sales calls that I did for that program. I I caught on to that really quick, and like sales people probably shouldn't do this, but like I noticed a pattern, for example, that when people said like, "Oh, can we talk again in like a month?" or like, "Can you call me back in like 2 months?" At first, I would do that. I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, totally," because I was like chasing the sale. But after a while, I realized those people, 99.99% of the time, have no intention of moving forward. And even if we schedule a follow-up call for a month or 2 later, they don't show up. So I started just telling people that when they would say like, if it actually seemed like it was a good fit and the program checked the boxes what they were looking for, and I honestly was like, "Yeah, man, I think you could totally do this." If they said like, "Well, could we talk like next month?" I was just like, "Hey man, like you have my number, you have my email, you're welcome to contact me in the future." Honestly, I found it's kind of a waste of my time to book follow-up calls with people 2 months later because honestly, they never show up. So, I would rather just be straight with you and be like, "If you don't wanna do this, that's all good. I don't wanna book a fake call with you if you're not gonna show up to it." And honestly, like, sometimes people would then kind of come forth a little bit and be like, "Yeah, well, I'm still kinda worried about, like, this thing or whatever." And then they start saying, like, what the actual problem is. So I found it feels ballsy sometimes, and I'm not saying it works out all the time, but it works better for me to kind of just, like, authentically call people out sometimes and just, like, tell it like it is. And sometimes people laughed at that. Like, I've spoken to people before who had some kind of sales experience, and I remember this one call specifically where I was like, "Yeah, I don't book calls for, like, 2 months out. Those people never show up." And the guy laughed so hard because he's like, "Kelsey, I wanted to say that for 20 years." I was like, "Well, it's true. Like, why are we playing this game? I don't wanna waste my time pretending with you that you're gonna actually show up in a month. If you really wanted to do this, you'd fucking start doing it." Like, you wouldn't be like, "Give me a month. Give me a month for life to step in." I just don't believe it most of the time.
So this is proof. I got something like real. I got something interesting to say on this one.
I'm
Um,
excited.
yeah. So this is proof that okay. First of all, this is proof that kind of everything works. Okay, like everything does work. You could take that sort of like minimal, I'm gonna call it like minimalist intentionality, really authentic approach of Kelsey here, where it's like it's not just about me doing a ton of volume, right? It's about me being more specific in terms of who I actually want to work with, who I want to have conversations with, and instead of just having a ton of conversations, having really good conversations, right? So you could take that approach, or on the flip side, like, and I'll reference my mentor again because what they recommend, what people recommend on the front end is usually what they recommend on the back end. And what I'm talking about is the people who recommend um, reaching out to 10 or 20 new people per day are also typically going to tell you that you follow up until the person tells you to fuck off. Okay.
Mhm.
And like, that's not an uncommon thing in this agency space, right? And my one of my previous mentors actually said that. Like, yeah, you follow up until the person actually tells you to fuck off. And like, sometimes it's setting like a 3-month reminder out or whatever, but you still follow up, right? And he said that that was huge for them. And he said that, um, he had it like so dialed in, it seemed at one point where he'd have different, with the whole CRM and all that, where it's like he'd have different prospects on different, phases of that journey or whatever. And like at the very least, a lot of prospects at like the beginning of the month would get some sort of message like, um, hey, name, I'm just, wondering, and don't quote me here, but like wondering if like insert result of the thing that you do is still important. Like wondering if like achieving this result is still important to you, right? And it's like if you do that like enough times, yes, it is going to convert, right? But I've also very much though, like I enjoy doing what Kelsey is talking about doing here way more. Like I like just kind of positioning myself as like the as the prize sort of thing and not being that needy motherfucker who's in your DMs every fucking day. That's what I like. You know what I mean? I really like that. And I also have had that work for me. I've had it work like really well, right? Because if you just want to preserve your status and that's like the first and foremost thing for you that you want to optimize for, I would actually recommend doing what Kelsey's doing there, right? But when these guys become like big agencies in this, it's kind of like we can preserve our status and still fucking follow up with these people. I don't give a fuck. Like let's fucking go. And they just hammer it. They hammer it so much that they achieve status by doing volume. And it becomes this thing where it's just like they're not outcome attached because they're doing so much volume. So you can be outcome detached by either taking Kelsey's approach or by doing so much volume that it's like, hey, dude, I don't care if you sign up or not. Next, 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 next. But I have an interesting story about a time where a prospect followed up with me. I probably have a few of these stories, but I have a time where I did a call with a prospect, and I think one of his business partners was on the call, and I thought the call went pretty good. I didn't feel like I just hit it out of the park or whatever. And at the end, he was actually talking to me about how he might potentially bring both of his business partners on to also become ghostwriting clients. And in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, sort of thing, right? But obviously, I didn't say that. Ended the call, didn't schedule a follow-up call, the opposite of what you're doing, Jeremy, which is a good practice. Didn't do that. And then then a month later, I flew down from Canada down to Buenos Aires, Argentina. And in my business at the time, like I was just doing all right. Like it was definitely not my hottest month or anything like that, right? And arrived in Buenos Aires, spent about 2 weeks there, and around about that two week mark, or maybe a little sooner, maybe it was just 1 week after being there, I received this email from this guy I had done a sales call with, like I think it was a month or maybe a month or two before, and then he was following up with like very specific questions about my service, and by the time he asked like the second question, I was like, okay, this guy's like really considering moving forward here, right? And then 3 or 4 emails in, he'd probably ask me about the price again and different things like that, how we run the service. And he's like, what would it cost if I was to bring on both of my business partners as well for all three of us? Right. I gave him one price, right? I think it might have been like $9,000 or something like this. And he's like, would it be entirely possible to like, is that the best you can do or something like this? And I just bumped off like 500 or like $1,000 or something like this. And he's like, let's do it. Right. So, and that was just me in a very like relaxed way, having a sales call with the guy, not following up at all, like letting him come back to me. right? Completely outcome detached, right? Probably just thinking about who my next prospect was. He wrapped back around to me. He signed with both his business partners. And I think at the time, that was the largest like paid in full amount that I'd ever received. And it was about like 8,000 US dollars, right? So yeah, and that was pretty sweet. Um, yeah, so that's my story about how, yeah, taking the relaxed approach can work. But yeah, like once you become some big agency, I feel like they always go more aggressive with their sales approach, especially when they're also bringing in like appointment setters and closers and that kind of thing. It tends to always get more dialed down, tighter follow up, more volume, all that.
Oh, there's like several things that yeah, there's so many things you said there, Mike, that like got my wheels turning. But I agree with what you said that like you said you enjoy doing what I was talking about more. You enjoy being straight with people. You enjoy doing quality over quantity when it comes to prospecting. And it's so interesting, even like the words you use there of like detachment. This is exactly what I wrote a newsletter about today of like
Mm.
that different energy of like I I think there's a part in it where I actually wrote like that I don't like feeling like I am chasing people for the sale.
Yeah.
Um, it just to me, maybe some people would hear this and say like, "Well, get the fuck over it if you want to do good in sales." But doing that sales role was never like what I wanted to do. I just knew that learning sales was going to be advantageous for me in business, but I don't like feeling like I'm chasing people and doing the relentless follow-up because it feels like I think they pick up on that energy that like you are chasing them, and I think there's something really freeing about having the detachment of like, "Hey, I would love to work with you, but I'm gonna keep moving whether I do or not." Like, I think that actually that kind of having that bit of like a laid back energy of like, I'm building this business and I'm gonna help people, whether or not you're one of them is not gonna stop me from doing that. I think people like that energy more than feeling like you are relentlessly following up with them. I do think there is you are correct in that when people are like a one man show, having those fewer and more authentic conversations probably is what works. But then as they build out the business and they start playing more of a numbers game, it makes sense that they're bringing in like DM setters and stuff. And so you're going to get a little bit more of that chasing. But I actually had this happen to me on LinkedIn with Dickie Bush. I think I followed him and then he messaged me and I could just tell within the first like 4 exchanges. I was like, this obviously is not Dickie. This is somebody who manages his DMs, who is told to do a certain amount of outbound. And you could just immediately tell by like the questions he was asking and like how interested he was about like why I followed him and what I'm looking to do. And it made sense to me. I wasn't upset about it at all. I was like, this is clearly somebody who is in his DMs, who's supposed to do a certain amount of outreach. And I think that that style of sales, again, this is just in my limited experience, but I think it's starting to work less and less because people are so aware of it, because so many people are online now and so many people are constantly being pitched. Um, I can give you another example. This was like way earlier. I don't know if either of you guys have ever listened to the podcast, The Mindset Mentor.
Mhm.
Um, Really big. The guy's name is Rob Dial Jr., I think. And I used to listen to his podcast. I watch his content. I love it. And one time I shared one of his posts. And then he messaged me and was like, "Thanks for sharing." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Like, yeah, no problem, man," because I loved him and I was a little bit more naive to all this stuff back then. But then he just like he did the same thing. He kept asking me a bunch of questions about like, what are you trying to do? And I can't even repeat them verbatim, but I just remember it was the tone of the questions and the energy that I was like, I just stopped answering. And then he kept following up and he asked like why I stopped answering. And I was like, oh, honestly, I stopped answering because I don't think this is Rob that I'm talking to. I think this is like somebody who's trying to get me into his program, and that's all good. But that's not what I'm looking for. I just shared your post because I thought it was cool. And then he was like, "Oh no, it is actually me. I respond to these messages sometimes." I'm like, okay. But then he kept following up really relentlessly, and you like, I'm 1,000% certain it was never him. It was a DM setter trying to get people into his program. And I think people get so much of that these days that taking that spray and pray approach of like, I'm just gonna hit everybody with the same messages, and I think people are becoming more aware of it. So I think having a unique, like, legit connection with the person you're prospecting, for me, works better and feels better. I don't like feeling that salesy feeling of just chasing everybody.
Yeah, there's something to be
Yeah.
said about, like, not working with people. I actually had to fire a client this week, and I hadn't really had to do that, but, like, this one client was just costing me too much time. Like, he was paying $500 an episode for a podcast, but he was just I had to do, like, 6 or 8 different clips, and, like, he needed, like, custom fonts loaded into my Brevity system. I use Premiere Pro and then Brevity as a captioning app, and then it it ended up being this thing that was OCD kind of, and, like, you would think that it was never gonna really get right. So I just ended up having to basically just get rid of him and then just say, like, "Look, this is not working out." And it felt weird for me to have to do that, but he was draining my energy. And I think it's good to show clients that, like, "Hey, like, I don't have to work with everyone." Like, it's like Mike was saying, it's a privilege to work with any of us, right? Like, this is our what we do for a living. This is what we spend our time doing. I'm not gonna, like, spend my time trying to convince someone about a font or whatever. It's more about, like, the story and other things, and if you're, like, worried about these minor details because you have such bad OCD, then it's just not gonna work, and it felt weird having to do that, but it was actually, like, a huge relief for me, like, getting to just be like, "Fuck this is I'm done." Like, "Sorry, dude."
Some people would hear that like it's a privilege to work with any of us and just think like you're an asshole. But like it it's so far from the truth because I actually was thinking about this not too long ago, and it's like um the time and energy and focus that goes into, say, building a personal brand for someone, like, it's massive. And I mean, um something as well that I was thinking about that's directly connected to this is that if you gave any yeah, this will be interesting. Okay, if you gave any ghostwriter or any service provider, content creator, um we could just say $1 million, because that would probably be enough to shift most people's like future and reality. But maybe we say a million or 5 million. It's like, would you still be ghostwriting for clients? Like, and then it could be the same thing for a video creator, like what you guys are doing now too. Like, would you still work with clients? Well, you might, but I can tell you one thing: your rates your rates would go way up starting like tomorrow. You'd probably start charging $10,000 per month per client, because it's like, dude, I got 5 million in the bank, or like I could, instead of working with clients, I could do something for myself that's going to pay off exponentially, and I could build some sort of an asset that I can sell time and time again, just if I just produce it like once. For example, you could write a book, right? You could go now and you could take all of your video creation knowledge or all of your ghostwriting knowledge or even your life story or something, or your entrepreneurial journey, and just turn it into a novel that you could sell time and time again. And even if you're only selling it for like, 5 or 10 bucks or something like this, um it could end up panning out. Or you'd maybe focus more on your Substack, and you turn on paid subscriptions, right? Because you're in that position now where you can focus more on building like more of a product for yourself. And I know that like offering a service for people is it is kind of it's a product in itself, but the it's like a hamster wheel in a way, and it's because people always need more content. Your clients are always going to need more content. There's always going to be work that goes into it, and even if you like outsource certain parts of the business, like say you're running a ghostwriting agency and you bring on writers, graphic designer, all this, you still have to like man the ship, right? And it is still this revolving wheel of making it happen for your clients. So yeah, if you gave the average ghostwriter, $5 million, I think a lot of them would probably not do ghostwriting anymore. What
Yeah,
what
that
would you guys say to that?
It's interesting that you said that, Mike, because that was something that I thought about when I like a couple months ago when I was like, fuck, I should just build an offer out of interviewing people because it's work that I am already doing because I just feel pulled to doing it. Um because it like just for like the fulfillment it gives me. Like I like learning. I'm trying to like level up in my life. I like talking to people who inspire me. And I like asking really dumb questions. And if I can turn that into content that serves their business and helps them evolve with their content, because I think, like you said, Mike, like when their business is growing and evolving, their content should evolve with them. And I actually think making content can help you evolve. Like that's something that I kind of try to aim to do in the interviews is to get people to respond with things like, oh, I never thought of that before, or like, oh, that's a really good question. Or I interviewed a guy last week who was like, yeah, this is a really good question because I think that sometimes I maybe don't communicate my offer clearly to the average person. So I think content can help you evolve with your business. But that was something that I thought about was like, well, I'm already doing this work anyway. So immediately there's already a little bit of a detachment there because I'm like, whether or not this person says yes, whether or not this person becomes a paid client, I'm still going to do this. And I think there's something really cool about doing work that you can say that about. But I totally agree. I was actually talking to a mentor of mine about that recently because she said something along the lines of like, you know, ghostwriters are going to greatly get replaced by AI in the next like year or so. And I'm sure we all have our different stances on that. But I think the people who have a lot of conviction in their service and they know how much energy and thought and strategy goes into making good content for their clients, like those people are always going to be able to charge a bit more because they have conviction in it and they don't need you to say yes. If you don't say yes, they know that they can go find another person.
I also feel that what sometimes people will use the service and then get used to it and not cancel just because of the sunk cost fallacy almost where like it's working and they don't necessarily want to change it. They are getting leads or whatever. So they're like, oh, I'm not going to do anything about it. Yeah, I don't know. I think that ghostwriting might be affected by AI, but I don't see it like completely getting wiped out. I still think that you're going to have people that are like really good practitioners that know what they're doing, build audiences, and people are gonna just want what they have because of like the FOMO or like because of the results that they have. But it is interesting to see, like even with our offer, with the video offer, I had originally thought that it was only people that were like camera shy, but Mike had opened up my eyes. It's not only like the guy that I was talking to yesterday. He's not shy about getting on the camera. He's okay getting on the camera. He just needs someone to systemize the work for him. It's kind of like one of those things where if you're doing it by yourself, you might overthink it and take an hour to do one clip. Whereas like if you're working with someone like me and you, they can get a clip, 3 clips in an hour, and it's all systemized based upon like their actual backstory, their catalog about themselves, because we're basically interacting with AI in such a way that we're systemizing things that they probably haven't figured out yet. So I think that there's a little bit of that too, because I think that we're kind of like on the leading edge of how to use these AIs and how to prompt them and how to properly use them in our businesses. Where I know that most of the people I hang out with do not know how to do that, except for you guys. You know, the people that are practitioners, but my average friends that own like businesses, they don't have a clue on how to like build prompts and like build projects and things that will assist their business.
Yeah. So it sounds like Kelsey, like it sounds like you almost were thinking through that lens of like, you know, would I still do this work if I had 5 million in the bank? Right. And it sounds like you actually might still do it.
I would.
Jeremy, would you still do it?
I think I probably would, but I'd be much more selective about the clients, and I'd obviously use that money to compound so that I would not have to work. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like I would love to solve money as a problem where I have so much money that like in investments that it covers my nut no matter what. I always want to get to the point where like, I look at money as a solvable problem. Like, if you have enough capital and you could invest enough of it, like, I don't know, Bitcoin's 60 grand right now, 70 grand. I started buying Bitcoin at like 30K and then we rode it all the way up to like 120K. So I think that, like, if you have capital, like, you can make a shitload of money. It's a matter of
Yeah.
like picking your wise investments and letting compound interest work for you. I was actually reading that book, the Psychology of Money, and the author was saying that like the reason why we have like glaciers and like basically snow on the North or South Pole or whatever is because like a little bit of snow like was left over from one year, and then that was just enough to continue the snowpack and to build this big massive thing. And I look at that the same way as like retention with clients, right? If like you have like 5 clients coming into 2026, that's your base essentially, where everything else you could take more risks to compound on top of that base even bigger, because you should be going, I would assume, like after like maybe like the initial clients, you probably gave a little bit more of a deal than you should have, and you're leveling up or whatever. So at the end of the day, you start kind of just playing with like bigger, just trying to do bigger things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
You said something there that made me think, going back to what Mike you said earlier about like, if you had a lot of money in the bank, would you be chasing these people? And I think that's what's like for me, that kind of sales tactic of like following up relentlessly and like, pushing people to book that second call and not kind of calling them out when you could tell that there's some objection they're not saying. I think when I did that style of sales and prospecting, I felt like the energy I give off, or like the message that I subliminally translate to people, is I need your money. And I think having that more like detached way of being, of kind of having that laid back approach of like, I don't need your money. I'm going to do this regardless of whether or not it's with you. I think feels better for me. Like you said, Mike, it just feels better. I would rather do it that way. But it also feels better to the person receiving that message to be like, oh, this person seems like they actually want to work with me. There's some other reason here that they're messaging me other than they just want my money.
The $5 million in the bank lens, I think it's a really interesting way of looking like at all elements of life and business, where it's like, how would you message a person if you had 5 million in the bank? How would you? And they say, no, I don't think this is for me or whatever, right? Like, how would you respond to that person? Like, if you had 5 million in the bank, it's like, yeah, no worries, bro. Honestly, if anything ever changes at any point, feel free to reach out. I understand we're not for everybody. The offer's 10,000 a month. They're like
Yeah.
you really would not care at all. And if you can get into that mindset, while having 50,000 in the bank or whatever, or 5,000 in the bank, then I think you just won the mindset game.
Yeah. It kind of ties into that whole like sales is a transfer of energy thing, and like
Mm.
manifesting the person that you want to be. I think there is something to that. I found like that those kind of principles helped me have a big kind of mindset shift around the way I want to do business and money in general. Is like it is a transfer of emotion. And I think if I try to remind myself of that before I go into conversations or before I get on a sales call, it's like I don't need this person's money. And like, how would I show up to this if I was just genuinely trying to help this person? So the way that I kind of think about it is like, how would I handle this conversation, or how would I behave right now if I already had the financial situation that I wanted? Like if I closed 20K of new deals this week, how would I go into this conversation? I'd probably go into it with a very like honest, laid back, easy conversation. And I'd probably honestly reach out to people similar to how I'm like trying to practice right now. Like I messaged 2 different people this week who I wanted to interview. One of them, I'm actually really excited because they both felt like a bit of a leap because they both have like around 100K followers. But I'd seen for both of them, I saw a post about something they were doing. I went and looked at more of their content. There were things that I saw that I got excited about, that I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. Or like, oh, they've reached this milestone. Like, I wonder how they did that. So when I reached out to them, I tried to think about like how would I approach this person if I did not need their business at all? Like if this was completely genuine. And I just said like this is what I really like about what you're doing, or like, hey, I saw this post. I really, really like this about it, or I really connected with this. And so I got into the specifics of like what exactly they said that inspired me enough to reach out to them. And in both of those people, within 5 back and forth, I booked an interview with them. And it's not a paid client. That's like it's just an interview, but it's still prospecting. It's like reaching out to somebody, hoping to talk to them, get on a call, do an interview, and getting the response that you were hoping to get.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is something really interesting. It actually relates back to something that Jeremy was asking about on the last call as well. About should I do this free video kind of like lead magnet or part of my offer, right? And I just had another epiphany on that as well. Aside from it just being like a really enticing thing for the prospect, gives you an opportunity to see if you're going to get along with them, if you're going to be able to create good content with them, and all that. um, I think I'm correct in my thinking that when you guys do this and you do these interview calls, that it also creates kind of like it creates a content flywheel for you guys, that your prospecting actually becomes your content marketing plan. And that's why it's so brilliant in a way. As long as you're able to use, like, do you use those ones that you do for free for prospects? Do you use those in your personal content? Or
Yeah,
like,
I do. I had one actually
obviously the prospect would have to
from Troy, that
sign
writer
off on
that
it.
we all friends with, the guy that was like drinking and whatever. Like he wrote like a review for me after doing a video that I sometimes use. I had one actually this week too with another gal that we're not going to do business together, but I had her write like I did the free video with her, and I had her write me like a LinkedIn recommendation, and I like that because I know that AI uses that. So like Gemini or Claude or anyone, anytime that like you're googling someone's name, they're going to pull that data from my LinkedIn so that it only increases my positioning on what it is that I'm doing because it's from like live feedback. So it all works together. Like, because if you Google, like, if you AI your name, it'll have stuff that comes up like about you and it'll pull from your LinkedIn profile, I've noticed. So it actually just tightens your positioning for the overall market so that I don't have to explain what I do. AI already pretty much has a handle on that, which is kind of interesting.
That's interesting that you bring that up, Jeremy, because I was literally doing this yesterday. Like last night, I was looking if there's a way to very easily ask people to endorse you on LinkedIn. It doesn't seem like there's a way unless you just message people and like send them the link to your profile. But like there are some people that I've interviewed who have said like, yeah, I'd be happy to write you a testimonial. And I thought about like, okay, where would I want to get them to write that? And I thought yesterday, I was like, oh, maybe I should get them to just endorse me for that skill on LinkedIn of like, I think one of the skills I have on there is um, on camera interviewing. And I don't have any endorsements for it right now. And I was like, maybe I should just like collect testimonials there from people. And then, I can screenshot them and use them other places, but I thought that might be advantageous to do on LinkedIn. So I was looking at the section on LinkedIn where you have your 5 different skills, and I thought maybe there would be a button to be like, ask people to interview you for this or to endorse you for this skill, but there doesn't seem to be. I'll just have
There-
to reach out to people personally and ask them the favor.
There's a skills button, but there's also a recommendations one. And then you put like, I'm Jeremy from Video Ghost. I worked with this person here as a collaborator or whatever. And then you send them the link and then they can write specifically like a paragraph about you. And I've had like a couple of them. And then AI will
Oh,
read that. So it's
Yeah.
very specific to you. Yeah. So like,
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Is what you're really talking about is the recommendations tab.
yes, that.
And that is like, then you could actually have people leave testimonials for you. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the word testimonials, but then you switched over to endorsements. And I was thinking in my head, what you're
Oh, yeah.
actually talking about is
That's
recommendations.
recommendations. Yes. Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
This is okay. I'm gonna
So
do that.
video and text, right? Because the text is for AI purposes, I assume, like for the AI to read it. But then video is just because video testimonials are better. So I try to collect both.
Recommend.
Oh, yeah. And you could put video testimonials in the featured section, is something you could do.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Nice. Interesting.
I just came up with something massively valuable, and I don't know if you guys do this because I thought about the content flywheel thing. But like, do you also position it, Kelsey? You probably do, but like, do you position it that like they also get the video posted on your page, which is basically just like free promotion for them?
Yeah, yeah. So what I do right now, when I'm reaching out to somebody, like the person that I connected with this week, I just said like, this is what you do that I think is really cool. This is what I have a whole bunch of questions around. I think me asking you these questions could really good for really good content for you. So if you're down, this is kind of what it would look like. We'd block out 90 minutes. I would just ask you a bunch of questions about your business, your journey, kind of like, misconceptions people might have about what you do. And then I'm going to post the full interview on my YouTube, my Spotify. Happy to tag you in it as well, but I'll send you the full raw interview. I'll also send you any clips that I cut from it, any posts that I make from those clips. I will tag you in, and you're free to use any of it for your own content if you want. It's all up for grabs. And then I'll typically write one, sometimes even like one article and a feature article. So 1 to 2 articles, and I'll make sure to tag you in that as well, and send everybody to your link if they want to learn more about working with you. So I try to. It gives me a lot of content because I'm using all of this in my content, like my posts, my newsletters. But I'm also
Yep.
kind of trying to stack all these reasons why it'll maybe be helpful for them too, and all the stuff that they're going to get out of it. So I find like once I find somebody that I genuinely want to interview, it's not difficult for me to book that person. At least lately, I feel like I'm finding my rhythm with it.
What's your guys' thoughts on having like maybe offering a live session where you go in as a co-host to some of these tech businesses and you go into like these technical founders that don't have a clue how to talk, but they know how to talk about their products. So you're there just to like kind of be their babysitter essentially and to ask them good questions. Not that's the wrong word, maybe their editorial person. They kind of just helps them on their so they you basically stream live from their company LinkedIn page, and then that's part of the service where like you're just in there helping them, and maybe you can cut some clips from that session potentially too. I thought about that too because it just seems like a lot of these guys also guys and girls want to get on like lives as well, but aren't for whatever reason. So I don't know. That could be something interesting too because we're already kind of doing that with our own businesses, just not with like part of the offer for whatever it is that we're doing.
When you start talking like that, the first thing that comes to mind is honestly, there isn't really a ceiling on where you can actually go with a service like this. Like you could be doing like big, video production, like podcasting as a service type stuff for like companies with like unlimited or like just like massive budgets. You know what I mean? There isn't really a limit with it. But where you guys are kind of like obviously you're not starting out, but where you're starting from is like where you would start and like with those more like independent entrepreneur type people. But then I don't know, the sky is the limit in terms of where it could actually go.
Yeah, I've thought, and I don't know if Ahad is still on the call. If you are Ahad, feel free to comment because I actually reached out to him as per your suggestion, Jer, to look into. We're going to set up a call to kind of figure out how I can set up Riverside to like when I'm interviewing somebody on Riverside, it automatically pushes it to a Substack Live. But when I think about doing the live, like going live with these people that I'm interviewing and cutting clips from, I'm definitely down for it. And if they don't mind, I for sure would just push all these to my Substack Live because why not? But I could see, or maybe this is just a limiting belief in my head. One of the things I thought of was like, well, I could see there being people that maybe don't want to do that because it might make it a little bit more nerve wracking for them, or they might like about my offer that I edit it and we cut clips from it and stuff. So I think there's another level of courage that has to be there when it comes to people who want to go live. So I love that the three of us do this every week and we go live because there is a little bit of like there's no taking back what you say on a live, you know? So I can see
Too.
yeah, I can see
Amazing that
some
it's like
people not
it's worked out pretty well for us. I don't think that any of us have said anything that's like entirely very regrettable.
Like we're not getting canceled yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll say something privileged eventually.
So funny. The privilege thing comes up occasionally, I suppose, right? Hopefully
Oh
Mike's
no.
okay. His video looks like it cut off there.
Yeah. Oh no, he missed my privilege joke. I'll say it again for him. Um,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've oh no, he's gone.
I think we lost him.
I've thought about incorporating lives into it, and maybe, you know, that could be something that could get added on for the right person, or it could be a future upsell or something. I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I definitely am into the idea of pushing my Riverside calls to Substack lives because, like, why not? You know?
Yeah, I just figured like it could be like an extra bonus or something or an extra way. Like if they're already like maybe you're still doing the Riverside calls in private or whatever, but maybe one live call a month just to like push chops and like you kind of sell it maybe more as like a community because you could see here that there was like 48 people on this call and sometimes a lot of these things too they end up the messaging is different when you're like in like a private Riverside studio you're not necessarily getting that feedback from like people in the audience so I think that there's something to be said about that too especially if you're doing it consistently and then that audience starts to pop off after a while but
Yeah, that's part of why I think there is a lot of value that could be added doing lives because especially if they're like if they're somebody that maybe they already have a bit of a social following, they have people who show up to their workshops and stuff, then going live is a really good opportunity to do interactive content. And like
yeah
I might have a bunch of good questions lined up, but sometimes you're surprised by the questions that people ask in the live that you're like, "Oh, this person just asked this." And then, you know, they're engaging with those followers on a whole other level. So I think there's something to it for sure. I
yeah
haven't ironed out how I would want to incorporate that yet, but I could see it being in the future.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped for it. But anyways, are you down for the same time next week? Is that good for you?
Yep, I'm good.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you everyone that's on the call that joined us today, and join us again next week at 9 a.m. Pacific. And it's always fun speaking with you, Kelsey and Mike. I always learn a ton from you both. So looking forward to next week.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. This is the most people we ever had on a live, and I feel like we were all stoked about it.
Hell
So
yeah,
appreciate everybody who joined us. Happy
yeah.
Friday.
Let's go. Happy Friday.
See you later, Jer.
Bye.